3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, a podcast from 3 Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. This is yet another one of our Fett Fridays, and today we will be discussing Episode 5, Return of the Mandalorian. And joining us for this discussion is the awesome M from Pink Milk. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here.
Oh, the honor is ours having you. We're so very excited. It's so good, especially because last week, life happened and we couldn't release our episode on our Fett Friday as we wanted to, so we have to release on Monday. But today we are back on track. We are on schedule, and oh my God, episode 5 was such a good episode. So much to discuss, so much meat in there. And Nani, I know you have a lot of mixed feelings about whether this episode belongs in a series about a character called Boba Fett, and we'll get to that in a minute because I think it's a valid discussion. We've seen both sides of the coin on the Twitterverse and all that discourse online. But before we get into it, let's just have some initial reactions of what we thought about the episode. As always with previous episodes we have a guest of honor. So, Em, why don't we start with you? What were your initial thoughts when you saw that episode for the first time?
I loved it. It was so good.
That's worried me a little bit. I was like, oh, here we go. The spicy take.
It was, I was delighted. I was fully delighted from beginning to end. It was a great episode, and I had so much fun. I'm still thinking about it.
There was so much meat to it, right? It's basically divided into the two parts: the bounty hunting first part and the Halo station, and then that Tatooine stuff. But I thought this episode did something that it's kind of lacking to an extent in the rest of the book. Yeah, I was gonna call it the Book of Boba as if this was separate from it. We'll get to it, but it condensed so much storytelling in a 40-minute episode that I feel Mando has somehow excelled at in a way that Boba has not. And I think we can get to that, but let's keep going with reactions. Mo, what did you think?
Well, I was hoping for the Book of Boba and I got the Book of Mando, but I love the episode, but it did feel that we're taking the spotlight away from kind of like we were saying, they did so well in doing a present day episode, and yet we haven't had just a present day episode for Boba.
Yeah.
And then present so, but it was beautiful. Oh, it was just so deep. It was so emotional. There was so many layers in this episode, and just the specter of Grogu. It's just specter of Grogu.
I know.
That's a good T-shirt. I should write that down. The specter of Grogu.
It's just a great motivator. You just want to see, yes, let's forget about Boba. Boba's gonna probably be you know what? Forget about the Pikes. I'm helping Mando.
Right.
But
it's a fair point, especially with how, I mean, it's not that Book of Boba has been bad per se, right? But it kind of feels like the story. It's like the story's kind of drag. It's kind of being pulled under its own weight to an extent. It just hasn't kickstarted, and we're only 2 episodes. There's only 2 episodes to go, so it's interesting to see how they're gonna wrap everything up. But Nani, how about you? I know you have lots of feelings.
Well, the initial feeling is amazing love, because it is. I was never expecting it to be Din, the one that showed up. I know that we ended with his theme song in the last episode, but I didn't really think they were going to pull out all the guns. And then that glorious scene at the butcher shop when you see through the screen and he suddenly stands there and just the entire silhouette. I was like, oh my God, it's Mando. And when it's it could be any Mandalorian, I was like, no, the spear. He has the spear. It's him. And then he walks in all his glory, and that entire introductory series, we were squealing like idiots, like, oh my God, what is happening? This is so awesome. And the dark saber and the destruction and just everything. It was so good. And then the hit of Boba Fett's theme and Return of the Mandalorian. I mean, I was just like, holy crap.
Which
Those
is a
are some of the-
callback to this little movie called Return of the King. I don't know if any other movie has ever called Return of something. Only though the rings rings a bell.
So, I mean, I think those are some of the greatest first minutes in TV ever. It was fantastic.
More than Luke Skywalker.
More than Luke Skywalker. Yes, I agree.
I agree.
And the entire episode was amazing. I loved the episode. But like you were saying, we only get 7 episodes of Book of Boba. We don't know if there's going to be a second season. We don't know what's happening. And it's a character that I fall in love with. And I don't get a glimpse of this character at all. And we know Mando's getting a 3rd season. So I think it could have been handled a little bit differently. I think we could have had that fantastic opening scene and then cut to the point of view of Fennec and Boba trying to track down wherever Din is, and then leave that entire sequence in the middle for like episode 1 of Din. It's like they find him where he is in Tatooine, and then it's like, where have you been? Long story. I need to find my kid. I'll help you out. And then we find out what actually happened in Mandalorian, because there were a lot of revelations that were very important to that character that he hasn't understood since his first season. And he gets his mind-blowing revelations of who he is and who his family is and everything in a Book of Boba episode. And then we lose an episode of Book of Boba because of it. So I think it could have been done like you skip that, go back to the storyline a few minutes later, and then continue. We find out what happened to Mando in the in-between in his own show. And then it works for both, I think, that way. So, you know, after that introductory scene and then minutes kept passing, I'm like, we're not getting any, we're not getting any Boba. Like, this is just a Mando episode. Okay. I mean,
There's
it's
no
fantastic, but it kind of lessened my enjoyment of it towards the end, because I was just expecting Boba to show up at some point. So I had to rewatch it again with the expectation that I'm not going to get any Boba. And it's like, this is a Mando 2.5 episode, and just watch it as that. And when you watch it like that, it is an amazing episode, but I don't necessarily agree that this is where it should have been. But
yeah, I'm definitely, I agree to an extent. I try to like be nuanced about it. I don't want to be so binary of, you know, bad, good with the decision of having be a Mando episode, because I do think that there was something jarring of having the series kind of like derail completely, to, you know, take a left turn to Mandoville, which, you know, it's a nice detour. I love the Mandoverse. I love the Mandalorian season 1, and I think that this episode was very season 1-esque. You know, it kind of kept that whole grittiness and wonder and mystery of that cowboy man with no name essence of what Mando was in season 1, that was lost to an extent in season 2. So having that be the entire focus of the episode was very jarring, because it was kind of the same as you, Nani, right? I was kind of checking my phone and I'm like, okay, we're 10 minutes in. Okay, we're 20 minutes in. Okay, we're 30 minutes in. And at 35 minutes in, I'm like, okay, Boba's not showing up. So it's weird that they did that decision with only 2 episodes left, because I think if we had 10 episodes and all the episodes were like an hour, I'm like, we have time to take a detour, especially when it's a detour for a character that connects to Boba, and like they're going through similar journeys, right? So in a way, this episode does help inform the narrative of the show as a whole. But to kind of have a backdoor pilot for a show that's already ongoing in a series that just started with it was weird. It was weird. And then Fennec shows up at the end, like in a non-post-credit scene to tease the Book of Boba Fett show, and she's like, "Wait, why are we getting a post-credit scene for a show that we're already in?" So I don't know. It was weird. I accept it. I love the episode. Bryce Dallas Howard, amazing directorial episode here. I mean, what more can we expect from her after the 2 beautiful episodes that we had already gotten? So let's keep giving her more. But Em, what did you think? Did the episode feel out of place for you, or do you think it's, you know, perfectly
It
in
worked.
tune with the storyline?
Yeah.
I thought it was a very bold choice.
No.
Like it was such a bold, strong choice. And yeah, I was fine with it, honestly. Like
Good.
I really liked expanding on sort of having these thematic expansions of like
Mhm.
what is a Mandalorian? What does it mean to be called
Yeah.
a Mandalorian? Because like
Mhm.
Boba is technically a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
But exactly,
Mhm.
but he doesn't
You
consider
know?
himself one.
Yeah, and it's like it's all about like who has the right to
Mhm.
this, like who has the right to what, which has been explored all through Boba, you know, about like who has the right to power on Tatooine, who has the right to water, who has the right
Mhm.
to traverse the sands, you know, like. And so Boba, and I found that the difference between Mando and Boba is that Boba
Mhm.
has power from like Boba gathers his power from his external environment, like from where he
Mhm.
is. So when he was with the Tuscans, he built up his own strength. You know,
Mhm.
he improved his combat abilities, he got his weapon, you know, and all of those things. When he met Fennec, he went on a journey to gather his power by getting his ship back. And you know, and we know that at some point he reclaims his armor as well, that the Jawas scavenged from him.
Mhm.
And you know, he's always looking to like the external to find his power, whereas Mando carries his power with him wherever he goes.
Mhm.
You know, he carries his power with his Beskar, with the
Mhm.
spear, you know, and to an extent his partnership with Grogu when they were together.
Mhm.
You know, the fact that Grogu was able to save his life with his force powers and use his force healing, you know. So it's kind of like this great contrast between these two characters that in some ways are so similar and in other ways are complete opposites to one another. And also like with the whole concept of family, you know, like Boba has a legacy, like Boba has a memory of his father, and that is so important to him. And we see that in the Book of Boba Fett. They put it in the text by showing the flashbacks and the dreams of him always being abandoned by his father, you know, his father like flying off into the night. Whereas with Mando, so much of his identity is where he didn't come from, is the fact that he is a
Mhm.
foundling, you know, and his own identity as a foundling is part of what forged the bond with Grogu, right? Like that
Mhm.
was so important to their bonding and to his identifying with Grogu, you know, and that was part of what helped foster the responsibility that he felt and the obligation that he felt towards Grogu. So whereas Boba is sort of trying to live up to this pre-existing image, you know, of what it means to be powerful and what it means to be like a powerful warrior with honor, you know, part of that image
Mhm.
is the outline of his father.
Mhm.
Whereas Mando, you know, he sort of has a different journey to take about that, about like where his power is going to come from and where his authority is going to come from and where he derives his honor and what his model for honor is.
I think that's
So
a really good point, especially because of how I was thinking of how Boba and Mando's journeys kind of tie to each other. And I think you did a good job at explaining right that, but also helping me clear up my thoughts about it too. Because at the end, it means that it's you know, obviously the show is about identity and like finding your place, but in a sense, it's about when presenting this episode of Mando to an extent, and if you abstract it with how you were explaining about internal external journeys, Boba and Din right are in the same path but in different points of it to an extent. And Mando right now is where Boba was when he was just a bounty hunter before the pit of Carcoon, where he's just like, he thinks he should be a bounty hunter, and now he's like, no, I should be a crime lord. So he's more sure of his identity, even though I think there might be a twist. And he's like, actually, no, house husband is the life for me. But we'll see.
yeah.
So it's similar. So it's similar to Din, right? He's like, I don't know who I am, especially now that I lost Grogu. So I have to go back and be like a bounty hunter, which is like, what's the conflict with him and the armor at this point? What are you gonna say? Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say the other thing is like, this relates more to the Mandalorian series, but I think it also has something important to tell us about Boba Fett, which like sort of in a meta way, which is sort of that we have this code, this sort of secret code that we're getting from Bryce, because we get to see Bo-Katan and the Armorer are on opposite sides of the same story. So it's like in Bryce's Mando episode in season 2, we got to hear Bo-Katan's version of the story, which is that the Armorer churns out fanatics and that they're all a bunch of weirdos and that they don't really have a place in Mandalorian society. And in this episode, we get to hear the Armorer's point of view, which is, that Bo-Katan is a no good
Hillary Clinton. So,
and is like just no good, no good for anybody, and has and like brought Mandalore to ruin, and so. But just by the existence of like these two points of view on like what is a Mandalorian, like we also we get this clue that is part of Boba's journey as well.
That's really good because I didn't tie that together. That she directed the Heiress, right?
It's like his
yeah. So good. What was I gonna say? I totally forgot. Oh, but yeah, I especially like that conversation with the Armorer just because of that, because of how it framed Din's frame of mind at this point. You'd think that he'd have more purpose somehow because he finished his quest, right? He was quested to return Grogu to his own kind, and he did that. So you'd think he'd have some sense of accomplishment. But it's interesting because his narrative arc from season 1 and 2 is not over. So like the Joseph Campbell monument thing is not done, right? He's in the low point, actually, when we thought he was going to return with the elixir. He's actually at,
because Grogu does not belong with Luke Skywalker.
Yes, absolutely.
That's why.
And Luke Skywalker did not belong in the Mandalorian.
That he wants the spear to be made into armor for Grogu, which I thought was a fantastic little detail. I was like, please say that it's something for Grogu. I'm so excited about this. And then the armorer says it's like he's with his kind now, and the Jedi make it so that attachments are a weakness. So you can't really be attached. And he's like, that doesn't make any sense. That's the opposite of our creed. We're all about loyalty and fidelity to each other. So he's kind of finding a balance of everything that is him. And I think he is starting to realize that his real connection and his real path forward is with Grogu. So
well, and this also positions Grogu as having an identity, like as belonging and having an identity that has one foot in both worlds.
Right.
So it's like, and also, which I don't think it's a coincidence either, that Mando is carrying the Darksaber.
Yeah.
So Mando has the Darksaber, which belonged to a Mandalorian and a Jedi. And now Grogu has been officially declared textually as being both a Mandalorian and a Jedi. The minute that the armor agrees to make something and accepts Mando's position, that like no matter where Grogu is, they are a clan of two, like Mudhorn clan forever.
They're a dyad in the Force. That's
not how that works, but okay.
No, but I like that comparison.
I will never believe that Din is Force sensitive. So
no.
Sorry, Brian.
But we all have the Force inside us.
Sorry, Brian. Well, yes, but although yes, I do.
Well, maybe Din potentiates Grogu's.
Right, they're stronger together than they would ever be apart. Like the sum of the parts.
They're a family.
The sum is stronger than the however that quote goes. But I think it's interesting how you framed it, right? Because it means that they're same in opposite ways, like a Jedi with Mandalorian traits and then a Mandalorian with Jedi traits, and they just complement each other. One's tall, one's short. It's perfect. But they're both kings.
They're both kings, absolutely.
But with that,
I mean, I really love what happens with the Beskar too, like how we keep talking about the Beskar and how it influences like the culture, the religion, everything that's happening. As soon as she sees that it's a spear, where did you get that? That is a weapon that can pierce Mandalorian armor. Beskar is only for defense and armor, not for weapons. This will hurt Mandalorians, so we need to do something about this. And then the fact that in the Darksaber, the hilt is Beskar. So technically it's part of a weapon, but it's not the part that pierces. It's the parts that defends. It's the hilt. So it's the only lightsaber that can't be destroyed by another lightsaber. It can counteract it as well. So it's an awesome combination of the defense, offense, Mandalorian, Jedi combination. And aside from the fact that the Darksaber looks amazing, and I love how they made it have weight, that it's actually heavy and he has to struggle to wield it. And it's not only that you have to win it in battle, like, you know, the Elder Wand, you actually have to, it has its own will. So you kind of have to let it fight through you. You can't fight it. So there was so much going there that I thought was
like that's how all lightsabers work, right? Like that's the whole mechanism behind a lightsaber is like, and that's why, you know, Padawans have to build their own, because that's their proof that they can be a conduit between the Force and the material world, like the physical, right?
Yeah, the wand chooses the wizard. Wait, no, but it's the same concept, right? You have to go to Ilum and you have to choose your crystal, and it's the crystal that's attuned to you, and not the other way around.
And then you have to choose the materials and forge it from scratch and everything, and then
especially in the High Republic, beautiful materials. In the High Republic.
Well, and the Darksaber, the first Mandalorian that was a Jedi, using Beskar as a hilt. Come on, that's amazing.
Incredible.
Baller. Incredible. But we were talking about the armor, and I felt when we were watching that scene when he first finds the covert. Whatever.
Covert.
Thank you. I was like, well, my English is failing me. I don't know about you guys, but when I saw how Paz Vizsla and the armor were looking at Din when they saw the Darksaber, I felt tension in the air. Obviously, from Paz Vizsla, we expected, because, you know, that's his clan. We've seen what his people have done in Clone Wars. But even the armor, I felt she was a little sus, especially how she was like melting the spear, and she's like only like melting like the head of the spear, and just kind of giving side eye to Din. I thought that the table was set for like the two of them to be like, no, not this guy. He's a foundling. He does the Darksaber does not belong to him. And even though Paz is the one that, you know, did the play, right, to challenge Din for the Darksaber, I still feel that the armor, I mean, I was team armor in season 1, but after yesterday's episode, I'm like, whoa, something's afoot.
She didn't have to ask. She did not have to ask Din if his helmet had ever been removed.
Right.
That was not a necessary action.
Yeah.
You know, like it was only Paz that was technically should have been asked that question, because he was the one that had been bested. When Mandalorians do those duels, like we've never seen someone who was have we ever seen someone who was victorious in battle be asked that question? I think it's only the person who just got their ass kicked. You know, and so it was like she chose to do that, which means that she was trying to find weakness.
Yeah, I thought that was very calculated from the beginning. I mean, and from the explanation that we heard of who their clan is, we can kind of assume that the Covert is a more zealot version of Death Watch that survived and can clearly believe that Bo-Katan was like the bane of Mandalore, because she accepted the Darksaber without actually winning it, and then have expounded all of their history to just deny that side of the Mandalorians completely. So you could tell from the beginning when he showed up that there was a plan there to be like, oh, if the Darksaber is in his hands, it should rather be in ours. So
well, the armor gave me like, I don't know if this was the intent when Jon Favreau was writing the episode, or when Bryce was like shooting it, if this is like what they wanted to imbue the armor's speech, right, when she was talking about the Night of 1,000 Tears. But for me, it felt very meta and very like real world, because she gave me a lot of Phantom Menace vibes. She gave me a lot of January 6 vibes. I was like, okay, the armor, you know, and it's good what you were saying about Night Watch, because Night Watch was a right-wing political party, and after being like pushed even further and further out, and then the devastation of the Night of 1,000 Tears, they become even more extremist and they push more to the fringe, which I felt that that's very socially relevant with a lot of the things that are happening in the world right now. So it was interesting to see. I don't know if that was the intent of it, but for me, it felt like that's kind of the world we live in right now.
I thought so too, because the original ones, like they did remove their helmets and everything. So it's just become
so
like they're just more
fringe.
zealots, more everything. Yeah, it's just like far fringe.
And
Crazy.
Din is just a poor teenager that went into the wrong websites when he was growing up and landed on the wrong side of Twitter and Reddit.
Victimized by the YouTube algorithm.
Exactly.
It is.
Especially with this episode, you can tell how indoctrinated and harmed and how much trauma he has from this indoctrination, because after him realizing that taking off his helmet is fine and in fact good, and all the different things he could do beyond the group that he's in, when he loses Grogu, he kind of loses that self-worth all of a sudden. He has to fall back into that power structure that has been, a foot on his neck, basically. So it was really interesting in terms of like that perspective of trauma, how he's just like feels worthless because like he has nothing. And the only thing that validates him now, since Grogu's gone, is the armor. And the armor, the first thing that does is like, you're not a Mandalorian, get the fuck out. Which is, apostate. Like that's not what welcoming religious groups do. I mean, religion is BS, in my opinion. But welcoming religions don't do that. And the fact that his family just turned him away at the turn of a dime, even though he's their ruler.
Yeah.
It's kind of telling. It's like, hey, yeah, you're the ruler of Mandalore. You have the Darksaber, but you're not a Mandalorian because you took off your helmet to,
you've already
make eye contact with your
won
baby.
it twice. You've already won it twice.
Yeah.
Combat
Right.
already.
Yeah.
And you're no longer a Mandalorian just because you took off your helmet. It made no sense to me. And it was what?
No, he won it once against the man who ordered the destruction of their world, and then against the descendant of the original owner of the Darksaber.
Right.
So he's not winning it against chumps.
Yeah. And then it's so sad how he's like, how can I atone? Because it's like, but you're my family, even though you're rejecting me. How can I atone? How can I make this better? It's like so incredibly sad. But I think we do still see a lot of character growth from him, because if that would have been said to him that he's no longer a Mandalorian in season 1, he would have taken all his armor off and would have been like, well, I'm no longer a Mandalorian. I don't know who I am.
Yeah, he would have accepted it.
Yeah, and shortly after that, when he goes to the airport to like get on the ship,
TSA.
He refers, which was great that even Mando has to go through TSA. He refers to himself as a Mandalorian, and that's part of his religion. So the declaration of the armor didn't break his soul, didn't break his spirit. He still, which I thought was a great touch right there. So
truly. Well, and I mean, and that just goes to show, like what I said originally in the roundtables when I first joined Pink Milk, the Pink Milk family, which is that like the story of Mandalorian, like if you started at the beginning of season 1, like he's a loser, he's washed up, like he is, and it's like this is the story of this is like the classic story of like the grizzled old washed up guy who finds a
bored,
reason to live
alone. Yeah.
He finds something to live for.
Yeah.
Finds meaning again, right? Through his connection with Grogu. Which is why they belong together.
And they will.
I love like when I was looking at that little package and it looked like Grogu.
It's a shape.
I know. It was so good.
Oh my gosh. The way Bryce Dallas Howard knows how to tell stories with just visuals, like her visual lexicon is just flawless.
Yes,
truly.
It's so disappointing that she's supporting NFTs though, but let's forgive her for that. Well, she's directing
she's
this
a rich
one
person
episode,
and she doesn't have to live in the
he
real
doesn't
world,
understand.
So she doesn't have to live in the real world, so she doesn't have real problems. So
well, anyway, back
but
to
it's
positivity.
because it frees up her space in her brain to make these beautiful images that we love.
I mean, that scene when Mando's like on the ship and the kid gets up on his seat and like looks at him and he's just like thinking about Grogu and picks up the package and like waves at the kid later, and it's like, oh, I miss my baby. And it was so good. It's so good.
And then I love like the first thing is like when he gets to Tatooine, where's your companion? I'm like, oh, I gave him like what?
Why would you do that?
I know.
Well, yeah, Pelly bought is just like,
Pelly
oh, he
won't
was so cute, your
understand.
son. And she's like, no, make a suit. And it's like, oh, we're so close, so close. Yeah, which I thought like I would get tired of Pelimoto, but she was so much
She was
better
so
in
good.
this episode. Like each
Yeah.
appearance
She
of
was
hers
great.
is so. I mean, she was like the parent that like knows you're depressed, but doesn't tell you you're depressed. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I'm gonna
Kind
do
of
this.
try
if you
to
wanna
work
join
around
me.
it.
I'm gonna
Yeah. It's like I'm
help you.
gonna go to this concert if you want to come. It's lame, but if you want to come, you can come. And that's what she was doing.
She's
with
like everybody's
Ben.
lesbian aunt.
Yes.
It was, oh my god, it was so much fun, because after all that, after destroying Mando emotionally and bringing him down in that first part of the episode in the Halo ring with the Mandalorians
ring.
to come to Tatooine.
And by the way, how awesome was that construction
yeah.
of that? I mean, it.
Oh my gosh.
The
I
visuals.
cried.
Yeah.
And the music.
Yes,
Mhm.
and everything, and just the pace. He's just like, he just got burned by a lightsaber, and he's just like kind of
which was amazing.
limping around. And it's just like the music behind it and the whole setting around him, and it's just like kind of defeated warrior. I just need to get this bounty done. Like it was masterful, really, the pacing and everything that happened in that entire sequence, and just leading up to heartbreak, and that time when he's like going down the stairs to go meet the armor for the first time. The visuals are, I got vertigo, like when he almost falls and everything. It's just so realistic and beautiful and gorgeous. Like every episode gets better and better. I can't wait for whatever everything else they're gonna do, because it just gets better every time.
Yeah, every single episode we talk about, oh my god, the visual effects are just so amazing in this episode. But for me, the thing that did it is like that long take that Bryce did of like Mando leaving to like go deliver the head to the employer, and like it's just one tracking shot, getting in the elevator, leaving,
and the guy like looking
to,
at him, and he like,
and I was like, holy crap, how did they do, like, even though the volume is amazing, but like this was a technical achievement to like do this as a long take in the volume. Good job, ILM. Good job, ILM. Good job, Bryce Dallas Howard, Lucasfilm. You're doing something right with like the technology and the passion and love that you're putting into these shows. It's like each one just looks better than the last. As Mando season 1, episode 1 looked amazing, but this episode makes that one look like look terrible in comparison with how much better things have gotten. But before we go into like everyone's favorite lesbian aunt, Mo, I wanted to hear a little bit more about your thoughts on the armor and Paz Vizsla and everything that was happening there with the religious indoctrination and everything. I don't think we got a chance to hear your opinions. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how that interaction made you feel?
I love the whole underlying like power struggle. Like you got, Mando comes in all beaten up. The armorer is like meditating up, like looking up to the space, like just like, oh, patch him up. And then the first thing is like, I feel like there's the armorer uses the full name on purpose. That like this whole, everything is like so calculated. I like, in true fashion, she's a true cult leader. She knows how to poke at things, like make things stand out, and like she was just setting it up so they can fight. And like the whole training montage kind of reminded me of like Rebels. It took me back to like when Kanan and Sabine were training, and how different their training was. Although the message in the end is the same, you have to fight with the blade, not against the blade. But the way the armor's approach was like kind of, not to like hit the nail on it, like, but it's more like cold and steel, like kind of like
it's not about the person, it's about the warrior.
It's not exactly. While Sabine's was more about, the training was more about like, find your feelings, center yourself, like so there's that contrast of like how to wield the lightsabers per se, and especially the dark sword. the lightsaber.
Yeah.
And then you can feel like the tension. I was like, after Mando defeats Vizsla, it's like I thought the armor was gonna challenge Mando because of the way that framing was shot, like the armor
She's
just
above
standing
them both. Yeah.
But
she did in a way, right? By telling him that he's no Mando and that
no
he has
longer
to
a
go
Mandalorian
in the waters, in the mines or whatever it was. She is giving him that challenge. It's like, hey, you go there to die so I can get the dark saber off your corpse. So she's, she doesn't have to fight him to challenge him.
She might, and she might be zealous enough to want Mando to be a Mandalorian once again. So once she fight him, he can become the true leader. Because I'm sure in her mind, defeating a non-Mandalorian, that's trivial. Every Mandalorian can do that. But a Mandalorian defeating another Mandalorian, that's where the power comes in. I mean, that we've seen that the clans, it's all about that idea of like power and what others visualize you as powerful. So to the armorer, it's possible that she wants Din to become a Mandalorian again, so that once she has her claim, it's like, I legit killed a Mandalorian that was cleansed by the waters of Mandalore. Like, I didn't kill just a foundling. It wasn't just the baby that I killed into the darksaber. So,
or maybe she doesn't want to kill him in that sense. Maybe she does want to like destroy his sense of self so that he rebuilds it in the way that she wants to, so that she can control him. Like, he's the leader of Mandalore, but completely indoctrinated to like how she wants him to rule.
The armorer's Rasputin of the
well, and I mean, it could
Lover
be
of the
building
Russian
up to
Queen.
like
That's a good song.
His myth, like maybe she wants to make him like a mythological character as well, because she kind of spoke about how the Mythosaur rising again is supposed to be a symbol of Mandalore coming back together, and maybe she wants to put the mantle on him and create a symbol from him to like call the the revival of Mandalore and whatever. And then hopefully, because she already knows that he's trying to atone, make him her puppet in that rise. And she still maintains her status as the armor, who's kind of like secondary.
She's
as
Dick Cheney, right? She rules from the shadows.
Yep. So who knows? But all very interesting.
Extremely so excited. So disappointing that we're not talking about Boba Fett, but whatever.
I know, but it's still a great episode.
Let's go back to Tatooine. Why does everyone want to go back to Tatooine? This time it was amazing, and what an amazing love letter to Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, the best of the prequel films. I don't care what anyone says.
Agreed. I agree.
Everything was just so beautiful. I mean, we did a tremendous and amazing, beautiful deep dive into everything terrible with religious indoctrination with the first part of the episode with the Mandalorian. So why don't we talk about everything fun and wonderful in Tatooine with the liberating scenes with the N1 starfighter? Emma, why don't we start with you? What did you think of Pelimoto and Din building his muscle car and everything that went along with it? Midlife crisis.
I'm always here for a Pelimoto moment, and the fact that she has added a BD droid to her roster just makes everything that much better. Like, I love me a BD droid. Honestly, I always say, if a BD droid is on screen, it's like the most adorable thing on screen.
Right.
Yes.
No one else stands a chance.
The minute I saw it with this little leg broken, I was like, oh yes, I love you.
So sweet. It was great. I just loved that little touch. But yeah, with the restoration of the starfighter, like what heartstrings moment. Like it just was so gratifying emotionally. And like I said, the music was so
good.
It was just like, oh my gosh, like I can see Padme in front of me, like
I can see little Annie testing the it's working.
Yeah, just what a delight. Yeah.
I wonder. Actually, I need to
So
rewatch now
inspiring.
episode 1 to see if I'm surprised none of the Twitter nerds have done this already, but to see like if the music from the from when he's going through Beggar's Canyon is similar music from the pod race in episode 1. Now I'm curious. I need to see because I'm not good at remembering those things. So I need to check.
Maybe you'll be the first Twitter nerd to find.
Please, yes, 1,000 likes. Here we go.
But it really sounded prequely to me. Like it was so evocative, and yeah, I just found it so touching, and I just love that this is going to be Mando's ship now. Like
it took me back to like 1998 or 99 whenever Rogue Squadron came out for Nintendo 64, right before Phantom Menace came out. And I remember there was a hack you could do because there was a N1 Naboo starfighter hidden behind the Millennium Falcon, and if you did like the right combination of things, you could use the Naboo starfighter in Rogue One and 64 before Phantom Menace came out, and that was like that was my life like, so as a youngin'. So like all of a sudden when Pelimoto just like shows him the N1, I'm like, yes, Jesus Christ, thank you, Lord. Because I remember,
and even from the beginning, because when it's like under the tarp and you can just kind of see the engines, you kind of think it's a pod racer. And
yes,
you're just like, what? Is it the pod racer? So it was so good. And then you actually reveal it's like, oh, it's an N1. Hold on. Okay. So I got kind of both. I got like that pod racer kind of vibe from it, and then it's the N1, and then all her explanations that are so awesome about like this is pre-Empire, this is pre everything, like this is off the grid, this is better construction, this was done by hand, this is I mean, come on, this is, trust me, this is what you want to do, and here, help me do it to help you get over your depression. Here, help. Let's
Here's
have
a wrench.
fun.
Get to work.
Oh, it was so good. So good. And then
Amy Sedari's like acting was great. Like her expressions, like the way it was, there was so much warmth in her acting that I was like it transcended the screen. I was like, wow, I like, I wish I could just be there and have that emotional
and how amazing was it to see her and hear her speak Jawa?
Yes.
Speaking of which, she got spicy. She got spicy.
Yeah, she got spicy.
I'm glad that M's here because we're gonna this is gonna be like the pink milk steam room here for a minute. So there was like a moment. There was not just that. At one point, she says that when when Mando's asking for pieces and the piece has to be a certain size, he's like, "Oh, don't worry about the shape and the size. I dated a Jawa and I made it work." I was like, girlfriend, what are you talking about? What I think you're talking about?
The only thing that bugged me is that I don't know how well fur will serve you on a desert planet, but
I don't know. She seemed to.
Smell.
I mean, oh.
Well, I mean, they clearly know how to walk around and do everything. So
maybe they're like cats and they just like groom themselves.
Well, they know how to find the secret spots. They're like.
I do like how the one Jawa when she said that started hitting on her, and she's like, "Hey, I'm on a journey of self-discovery or something."
Yes, that's right. Like, she's like, I'm focusing on me right now.
I was like, horny Jawas here. So I never thought I would say that phrase. I never thought there would be horny Jawas on screen, but here we are, 2022.
Look,
in the middle of a pandemic, and we got horny Jawas.
You know who knows all about horny Jawas is Lando Calrissian, who married several of them.
Oh, that's right. In the blue, right? In the blue milk, right?
Bantha milk in the
blue bantha milk,
yeah, in the Calrissian Chronicles, yes.
Which, speaking of Lando Calrissian, in that our friend Chris Rhines from Broaxium apparently was in this episode. Obviously, it's a joke, but there's the one character, one of the Clatoonians, that's wearing like a messenger hat or whatever that's called.
That's right.
That's kind of very.
It's true. It is very Chris.
It was hilarious.
I think that was like a recognizable face. Oh,
yeah, it looks similar to him, and then he does the post on Twitter, and then people actually thought it was him, and he started congratulating. So hey, good job, Chris. Once they do the Black Series figure for that Platoonian, you can set up a booth on Celebration and sign a couple of those.
That's right. Yeah, get out the silver Sharpie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Moving past horny Jawas and Pelimotos in Journeys of Self-Discovery, I think there was one scene that was very poignant when Mando's going through midlife crisis and he's building his muscle car to go hit the bars, which was when Peli tells him that she took out the astromech because she knows his disposition against droids. But it's kind of a twofold thing because he kind of gives that nod. But a couple scenes back, we see him, having a fun time with BD. It's like, hey, thanks, buddy. When BD's like showing him how to put the whole thing on it. But then there's the obvious reference of like, oh, this is an empty spot and it's kind of small, and a certain someone might fit in there. How did we feel about like how the N1 Starfighter was rebuilt for Mando and a certain someone? And why don't we start with you?
Oh, I mean, yeah, that was great. But I mean, it was interesting as soon as Peli mentioned the whole like, oh, I don't know how you feel about droids, because I mean, in season 2, like he was ready to let Peli babysit Grogu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And leave him with her. I mean, it ended up not being necessary, but like, and I mean, she's surrounded by pit droids. So, and he knew that. So I think like we've already talked about how that like showed sort of a softening of his attitude towards droids, but
yeah,
I guess she was just trying to honor the fact that he was very initially.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess it's a different thing to have an astromech with you like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like as part of your team. But yeah, I mean, that's brilliant piece of storytelling. And yeah, of course, as soon as everybody sees the little dome, they're gonna picture a little green guy in it, right?
Yeah. With his little mithril vest there. It's just like ready to go on adventures.
Mithril.
That's what the armorer built. She built a little mithril shirt.
Yeah.
Because we saw a little chain link. So I'm not crazy here. The only thing I want to hear everyone's opinion though on the N1 Starfighter, because as awesome as it was to see it in action, like see it in its full glory in a souped up muscle car version of it, I still have concerns of that being Mando's primary ship, because I'm concerned Mando takes long journeys. He needs a bathroom. He needs a place to sleep.
The cabin.
And N1 Starfighter is a little too snug. A little too snug in there. So do we think the N1's going to be like his main digs going forward? Or do we think he's going to like have that as this is my starfighter for, specific missions. And then I'm going to have my, my Dodge Caravan for when I have to take Grogu to soccer.
I mean, he needs the minivan. That's,
he needs the minivan.
He's got Grogu. He has to carry Grogu. You need a bathroom.
Grogu and the new little Rhodian child that he befriended who's going to be friends with Grogu now.
True.
Yeah, they're going to have play dates.
So you gotta have cargo space. Grogu needs its baggage.
Well, so he needs to be able to transport his bounties, right? If he's gonna get bounty
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So and it was a little. I felt claustrophobic when.
Yeah, it's really
that's
close.
Such a good scene though. That goes back to Bryce's direction, having like the camera between doing it. He like goes and oh my god, I was like, yes, this is cinema. I know it's a TV show, but it's still cinema. Amazing. But that goes into like then another thing that happens in the episode, which I don't know how I feel about it, which is the cops segment of the episode. Which was fun because we get to see Carson Teva again, which is everyone's favorite Bideration dude. However, there's some questions that arise from it. We got the Pike Syndicate. We have so much crime in Tatooine with all the illegal activity, and the New Republic's more concerned with traffic violations. How did everyone feel about the cops segment? I know it was played for laughs to like show Din pull a Van Diesel and just hit the NOS so he can get out of there. But what does that mean? Like, does it tie into what plans Lucasfilm might have for Rangers of the New Republic? How does everyone feel?
Oh God, I hope not. I don't want to see Rangers of the New Republic. I don't want it. I don't want that. I don't. ACAB. A cab. No. That's how I feel.
Especially if it's just traffic violations.
Well, I mean, and like you pointed out with the New Republic, it's like, what are their priorities? And especially because like the twins could just come and go from Tatooine as they please.
Yeah.
And they're like part of a massive crime family. And then you have these two, yahoos like giving Mando a hard time over a traffic violation.
Right.
Like spice running, genocide of the Tusken Raiders. Like,
yeah.
That's all cool, but hey, you don't got your
registration,
re-registration up to date.
and also, this ties back to what I was saying about the episode, the prisoner episode of Mando, which is like they were going to obliterate this prison that presumably had people in it who didn't necessarily have life sentences. It's like these are the values of the New Republic.
Yeah.
Like
I think that's what's missing, right, in the Star Wars lore as a whole. It's just like, what is the New Republic? Like, the only thing we've gotten from it, correct me if I'm wrong, Am, is not Lost Stars, Bloodline from Claudia Gray. That's basically it. We don't know anything. We just know that they existed and they got blown up, and apparently they're very good at pulling people over. That's basically it. And it's just a one cop harassing. Actually, Din could file police harassment because it's the same cop, just like on his ass. It's like, dude, it's a big galaxy, and Carson Tevet's always on Din's ass. Highly sus. Maybe the armor sent him. It's just like, no, you get my boy to jail.
I mean, it doesn't even make sense that they were even there to begin with, because even back in the day, Tatooine was considered to be so much in the outer rim that you couldn't enforce any law over there because they were one, too far, and two, the huts were too entrenched. Yeah. And it was a law unto itself. So why would the New Republic, that's already stretched incredibly thin and basically has no resources, would have X-Wings patrolling the skies around Tatooine? It doesn't make sense for them to even be there, honestly. Yeah. So as soon as I saw them, I was like, but why?
Yeah, I do like me some X-Wings, but in this case, it's just kind of like, okay, are we gonna keep
it was a little
parade
too much, I think. And you were already doing so well with how like the flight initiated everything, like how you first show the remodeling of the ship, which is like, oh my God, it's so good. And then how it shoots up into the sky, how it starts out like kind of slow. And then it's like, it's not a gunfighter, it's a starfighter. Like you have to give it, and then you actually feel the acceleration, you feel everything. And then going again to episode 1, doing Beggar's Canyon, and how amazing it looks. Like you can see the difference of like how CGA has evolved and everything, how the turns and it doesn't go for too long. They only do it for like a little bit, and then he shoots into the sky. And then that scene with the kid looking out the window, and then you could have just had him shut off. The kid was
all of us. Yeah.
I know. And then from there, you could have just had him do the release of the exhaust and shooting off, so you can go see how far it is without having that scene. It doesn't make sense to have that scene in there, honestly. So.
Yeah. Good point. I like that. Just him being like, okay, I'm gonna go Vin Diesel, Paul Walker. Let's go. Fast and the Furious.
Yeah. And that's it.
And they just return. It's just like, Pele, you did a good job with the sublight engines. That was dope. It's like, so it's like thanks, Auntie. That was amazing.
Yeah, this is like the attack escape ship, but he definitely needs a ship with like an actual cabin for if he's gonna continue. Because I do remember, like, as soon as they were building, I was like, this is really small, and the Racer Crest has a lot of room, for prisoners, for whatever. I think his family's gonna keep growing, so he needs
maybe he'll hitch like a wagon at the back of it with like an RV type of situation in the back that he just hauls on the N1.
I mean, maybe
I would be okay with that.
Maybe Boba wants to trade. Boba's like, well, I got my palace now. I need something smaller. I can just do errands. You have a family. Yeah. I don't need this big ass ship. Like, possible. It's possible.
Yeah, just make sure to fill her up when you bring her back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, don't
But
bring it
speaking
back with
now speaking of Boba and Boba's palace, let's speak about that post-credit scenes that happened before the credits with Fennec Shan showing up to
Yeah.
offer offer Mando the job that we know they were gonna offer him in the first place. We know that was gonna happen. It took 40 minutes for it to happen. So what did we think of that in terms of like how it sets up the final two episodes, considering that Mando replied with, well, I gotta do me a little gig before I come join you guys. So does that mean that there's gonna be a slight time jump before next episode or the final episode while Mando, goes to pet Grogu or something? Or are we gonna see Mando
lunch.
do that? How do we speculate that the next two episodes are gonna go based on that interaction between Fennec and Mando? And let's start with you.
I think that that's being used as an excuse to give Din like a dramatic entrance in the finale. So I think that they're going to play with the tension in the next episode, and it's going to be like a bunch of events happening. I think there's going to be a spiral of some kind. Something is going to change. There's going to be some kind of power shift, a crisis. Things are going to start to fall apart and descend into chaos. And then at this big dramatic moment, Din is going to show up. And the big question is going to be, will he have Grogu with him or not?
Okay, we're not taking any more questions. That was it. That was perfect. Good night, everybody. Mo, what do you think?
I'm with them. Din is gonna pull a Gandalf, on the fifth day.
Oh, right. Look to the east.
Look to the east.
With the rising of the sun.
The N1 starfighter just show up, with a little baby starfighter for Grogu just to come in.
I mean, that's it. I do hope next episode we do get some Boba.
Lots of Boba.
Like a full Boba episode. Could be Boba and Fennec, but keep focus it on the Book of Boba. Like I wanna see more development on the what's happening, and is Boba destined to like keep in Tatooine, or are they now opening up to now Din and Boba are gonna do their own Mandalorian group rise to power kind of thing. So I don't know. I want to keep it more local, but it seems that they're just opening things up.
I like that. And then Fennec is also like a Mando by association. So
Mando by association.
Mandalorian, orange Mandalorian helmet. I like it. Nani, what do you think?
Well, first I'd like to point out at that last scene, one of the things that I really loved, it's like, we want to hire you for a job. Here's the money. And she gives him a bunch of money, and he's like, what's the job? And then she's like, we just need muscle for this and this. And he's like, nope, it's on the house.
No, we're good. You helped me with my son. You did me a solid.
If it's about just helping him and not doing a job, I'm all for Boba. So I love that little, detail there. And so I don't think we're going to get any Mando at all in the next episode. Like, he's going to be on his quest to see Grogu. I really hope that we get a glimpse of that, at least in Mando's show, like of maybe him handing, the armor to Grogu or something along those lines. I would, I know. And maybe him realizing at that point that you don't belong here, Grogu, because you're going to get murdered if you stay in this camp. And
then Luke's like, this guy's, I hate him. Just take him. I have enough dealing with my stupid little nephew. Just take
who's going to murder everybody. So I really hope we see a glimpse of that, but I don't think we're going to have anything from him on this episode. And then for the last one, I'm really hoping that there's more muscle that we're going to see. Fennec just saying, we have credits, we can find muscle. It's not just Mando. She must have had other ideas of where to get muscle, including Frog Lady.
Including Frog Lady. Don't counter out the power of love. It's powerful.
So
she can heal everyone's dark heart.
So now that we did a whole Mando episode, I'm trying to see how they pivot into like making Boba the main character again, and how they kind of bring in all the wonderful things that you said, Em, that are really parallels between like Mando and Boba's journey, and how they bring that in and make it like show in the last two that this episode just wasn't a filler episode, that we did it for a reason and make it shine in the last two. I think that will be really important. And I just want to see how they wrap it up and make a story out of it, or maybe give us a surprise that it's going to continue, because I'm really falling in love with the character of Boba. It was a character that I thought was really one-dimensional and didn't really bring anything into anything. And since we started seeing this character in Mando, it's a character that's evolving in a really cool and understandable way, and bringing more things into Star Wars through this character. So if there's a possibility for it to continue, I would be all for it.
Yeah, I think that this is not the end of the show. I think they're setting up something way bigger. I mean, you don't call something the Book of Boba Fett, only give us like one chapter, even though I mean, technically 7 chapters, but you know what I mean. So like, I think that the Pikes are the big bad of the season, but when they defeat them in the final episode, it'll be like, oh, there's someone bigger behind it. Bam! Book of Boba Fett season 2. So
Red Dawn.
So I do Crimson.
I'm sorry,
shades. It's all shades. It's all shades.
Sorry.
It's been a long week. It's okay.
It's been a long week.
But so yeah, I think that that's what's gonna happen. I do think that we're gonna see some more familiar faces. I think it's kind of dangerous because it might distract. I mean, I'm still rooting for Cad Bane because I was always team Cad Bane for best bounty hunter in the Clone Wars. I was like, yeah, Cad Bane's the only one that has done anything useful here. Because I'm sorry to all the prequel babies, everyone that loves Attack of the Clones, Django didn't do anything. He outsourced it to a woman, and she did the job better than he ever could. And then what happened afterwards? He got his head chopped off. So
this is fair.
So he had more lines than Boba in the original trilogy, but Django didn't do much. But then what happened in the Clone Wars? We got Cad Bane, and Cad Bane got the job done multiple times. So that's why Cad Bane's the closest to my heart in terms of my favorite bounty hunter, and that's why I want him in live action. The thing is, at this late in the game, I don't know if that would be more distracting more than anything, and if it would just be like a glorified cameo at this point. So maybe Bosk is more appropriate because, you know, he can just come in. He doesn't really, there's no real drama with Bosk as opposed to Cad Bane, because everyone only wants to see the standoff between Boba and Cad Bane. So maybe Bosk makes more sense because there's not really that much tension story-wise as there is with Cad Bane, but I think we will see more familiar faces. But yeah, I do think that the series is setting itself up to have a second season because of how long it's taken for resolution on the show so far. But one idea that I was getting, actually, Nani, while you were talking about the show, was that maybe this show actually wants to be more of an anthology series, and it's called the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's no reason why the book needs to be linear in any one way. And it ties into something we were talking about last episode when we were speculating about if there's going to be more flashbacks. And one thing that I proposed that I'm still holding out for, maybe not this season, but in a future season, or if it's an anthology season, then it's like having Jango Fett flashbacks and have, you know, de-aged Tamora Morrison talking to, you know, little baby Boba, so that we can flesh out that relationship in Camino and whatnot. Because I think that's a missing ingredient that we have in terms of Boba's development. Like, we've seen the flashbacks, right, of him seeing his dad leave, but we haven't really seen an interaction between the two of them to kind of solidify that relationship and what's wrong or what's right with it. So
and
maybe
what
that's
it meant
something
to
for
him.
the future.
Yeah.
So
which would make, you know, sense under the title of Book of Boba, because it's his coming, it's his becoming, it's his everything, it's his story. So that would make sense.
And it opens the door for Omega too. It's just like, you get, that would be great, because then you have the past with Django and then the present, we keep calling it present, but yeah, the present with Omega. And then you have like those two sides of Boba interacting. But I mean, that's going beyond this season, right? To speculating of what an potential anthology season could be. But it's interesting. We'll see. I'm just wondering now if chapter 7 will have a post-credit scene. Yes, it will. And if that scene will be about Book of Boba season 2, or will it be about the Mandalorian season 3?
Yeah.
it could be about neither. It could be about Andor. They just like throw us a curveball, like Andor post-credit scene.
Now they're becoming Marvel. They just
It's called
little
synergy. Yeah.
it's synergy.
Well, yeah. I mean, it would be nice to see a preview of Andor, but I mean, that would kind of be disjointed though, right? Because that's not where we are in the timeline with this.
Narratively, yeah.
Yeah. And it made sense with the trailer of Book of Boba at the end of Mando because it stems right from it directly.
It takes place in the same era.
Yeah. And they made the connection to it, like even before Mando showed up, they made the connection to when he first finds Fennec in Book of Boba. So it actually feeds into each other, and it's supposed to be a spin-off. So it wouldn't really make sense to them to talk about like other eras, you know, at the end of it.
The thing is, I don't want to.
But I do want to see that though. I really do.
Yeah.
I want Andor. I want the Acolyte. Like, put it in my
Acolyte. Oh my God. The
That's
Acolyte.
what it's all about.
Yes.
I mean, yes, like I'm hyped for Obi-Wan. I'm moderately hyped for Andor. But the Acolyte is where it's at. That is the best show that Lucasfilm has on its slate. And they really have to push it. Because that is the most exciting thing.
Yeah. There are no words for how excited I am for this.
Like, Acolyte.
The only show that I think is as exciting is Obi-Wan, but Acolyte is different. It's new. It's fresh. We don't know anything about it. Like, it's got good representation, good creators behind it. It's like that's the jammy jams. I want Acolyte.
I really just wanted to give me like super weird, mystical, dark side force stuff.
Yes,
that's what I want.
Yes.
Like,
I want to see. I want to see
weird
vectors. I want to see like so many things from the High Republic and live action.
You root for the dark side. You root for the weird. You root for the magic. You all of that. Yes.
Night Sisters in live action. That's where it's at.
Yes.
we need Night Sisters in live action, and it makes sense because if it's at the tail end of the High Republic, which is amazing, go read it. It makes sense that it's Plagueis, you know, and the rise of the Sith, and like you know, back dealing with Mother Talzin. I don't know how old Mother Talzin is. Witch magic, she can be thousands of years old. Who cares? If Maz Kanata is 1,000 years old, Mother Talzin can be anywhere in the timeline, and in fact, she's not dead. We'll see her in the sequel,
action version of Mother Talzin and Night Sisters. Oh my god.
Yes.
I would.
We need it.
Die.
Well, especially with the announcement, right, of like Jedi Fallen Order 2. Well, we don't know what it's going to be called, but the sequel to the series, and maybe we'll be able to like see I forgot her name, for the love of Christ.
What, Marin?
Thank you. We get to see maybe Marin becomes a playable character, and like we can play as a Night Sister, and like they kind of bring back that lore.
I need that.
And tie with Acolyte.
Need that so bad.
Yeah. It should happen because not that Jedi gameplay isn't fun. It's fun, but we can mix it up. And I think the
playing
gameplay
as a
of
Night
Fallen
Sister.
Order, yeah, it's like him, Cal Kestis, or Marin. You play as either character.
That would be amazing.
Just like with Assassin's Creed Syndicate, they could have like different play styles, or you could have like quests that were geared more towards one's skill set than another.
Yes. Please cancel.
Respawn.
Cancel Eclipse.
Cancel Respawn. Eclipse. Hire me.
Hashtag blackout.
Hire me to design Jedi Fallen Order 2.
Hire her immediately.
Yes, please.
But with that,
I'll put in a secret level where you get to bring back Trilla.
Yes.
AKA my wife.
Amazing. World between my worlds. That
Trilla.
Shit. Let's do it. Please.
That's perfect news.
But with that, I think we've done like we've had such an amazing conversation. We've had so much fun talking about Chapter 5, Return of the Mandalorian. It's been so much fun dissecting everything from religious indoctrination and trauma to youthful wonder with Naboo's starfighters. But with that, unless anyone else to say, why don't we start wrapping up? But before we wrap up, actually, we were talking about video games a little bit. So if anyone that's following us on Twitter knows that we're supporters of the movement of our hashtag Blackout Star Wars Eclipse. So Emma, why don't you plug that a little bit more, since I know that Pink Milk has been like a very loud voice and one of the people in the forefront for this movement. So for anyone who's unaware, anyone who's listening who's unaware of the movement, why don't you like tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so the Pink Milk Crew, we were talking about the many sins of David Cage and the failures of Quantic Dream to give sensitive representation to queer people and women and gender variant people in their games. And we just don't feel that that's a good home for the Eclipse project. So we really want considerations to be given for this project to be moved to a different video game studio that provides better conditions for its workers, has leadership that is, sensitive and thoughtful, and has a history of positive representation of queer and marginalized identities in its games. So we have the hashtag Blackout Star Wars Eclipse. We periodically have hashtag campaigns on Twitter. Keep an eye out for it on your trending page.
Because we always make it trend.
We hope that you will. We hope that you will join us in supporting this cause, because we love Star Wars and we want more Star Wars, and we want more Star Wars video games. This is not about canceling anything other than David Cage and Quantic Dream. That's all we want to cancel. We don't want to cancel Star Wars. We don't want to cancel Star Wars Eclipse. We don't want to cancel a video game set in the High Republic era. We want to see this type of the wonderful like rainbow of representation that the High Republic books and comics have given us. We want to see that done justice in a video game, and we just don't feel that Quantic Dream is the right place to do that. So if you support that cause, then please support Blackout Star Wars Eclipse, put it in your profile, and use the hashtag.
Yes, we definitely agree and support with this, and everyone that does not support it, I'm sorry, you're wrong. But we can, if you think you're right, leave it in the comments below so that we can ignore it.
I mean,
yeah, especially with the High Republic.
With the High Republic, I mean, it makes no sense to begin with, but especially with the High Republic, which how open and amazing and beautiful it is, that it makes no sense whatsoever. None at all.
I mean, if you had a different creator of the saga, okay, sure, like I can see how you're just like, oh, well, the saga's not about that, but George Lucas was a radical lefty, still is a lefty. So it's just like you're wrong. You can leave a comment if you think you're right, but we're gonna ignore you because
all the hate, bring it.
Yeah, you're well,
feel free to come for me on Twitter.
Yeah, it's like you'll get an auto block, but feel free. But with that, Emma, where can everyone find you on the socials?
Well, okay, so firstly, you can catch me on Friday nights at 9:30 Eastern time on Pink Milk After Dark. It's a live stream, and then the audio also comes out as a podcast on Wednesdays. So please subscribe to our channel. It's YouTube, like our YouTube channel. The name of it is Pink Milk Podcast, and you can find us in your podcatchers by searching for Pink Milk. Sometimes Pink Milk Star Wars, because sometimes people tweet about like Korean pink milk or whatever. As for me, and which is great. I love novelty drinks. They're delicious. So you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Huttslea, HUTTSLEIA. Ship who you want. All ships are valid.
And we'll leave links to all of those in the description below. So please make sure to check them out. They're amazing. Pink Milk is a good friend of the channel. So please, please, please make sure that if you haven't, check them out. Give a like, give a subscribe, give them lots of love, because they're a very positive force in the community. Right.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Em. It was such a joy to talk to you. This was great. Hopefully you'll be back at some point. We'll let you know, because this is fantastic. Yeah.
Anytime you want me, I will come.
Yes.
Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful experience. The show is so great. I'm such a huge fan. It's such an honor that you've shared this space with me, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. And please give our love to everybody else on the team of Pink Milk. We are huge fans of all of you as well. Like, you have an amazing space. So we are Triad of the Force. You can find us wherever podcasts can be found. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Just search Triad of the Force and you will find us. We have a TeePublic with some pretty cool designs that our dear Goose over here does. And with that, we will be back with regular episodes. Season 3 has just started. We will finish doing the last 2 episodes of Boba Fett with 2 guests. Let's see what happens at the end.
Yeah.
And until next time, may the Force be with you.